My wife whispered, "He's in the shower. You have 5 minutes," into her phone. She didn't know I was behind her. I just grabbed my keys, left, and sent her the divorce papers while she was still wet. 2 days later, her sister asked if she could stay with me. "My name's Jason, I'm 35, and I used to think I had a quiet, simple life. I'm not flashy. I work long shifts as a firefighter in a smaller city, come home smelling like smoke, and my biggest thrill used to be seeing my wife waiting at the door when I came back. Her name's Riley, and for 7 years, I thought we were solid. We didn't have a big wedding, didn't travel the world, but we built something steady. I gave her everything I could. Turns out, I gave her too much trust, and she gave someone else 5 minutes. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was supposed to be at work. My shift got called off early because of a staffing mix-up, so I came home unannounced. I thought I'd surprise her, maybe pick up dinner, even light a candle like we used to do back when we first moved into the house. I parked out front and took my boots off on the porch, like always. I didn't want a tracksuit inside. The first weird thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Riley always had something playing. Music, a podcast, or one of those true crime shows that made me nervous about how much she enjoyed them. But that day, nothing. Just silence and the hum of the fridge. I walked in through the kitchen, past the dining room, and that's when I heard her voice. Muffled, like she was talking low. And then I caught the words that changed everything. "He's in the shower, you have 5 minutes. I froze mid-step. Not, "He's out," or "He won't be back for hours." Not, "It's safe. He's in the shower." That meant me. That meant she thought I was here. Right now. In the house. I leaned slightly toward the hallway. She was just around the corner, standing by the front window, phone to her ear. She hadn't seen me yet. She was in one of my shirts, the one she always said was too soft to give back. "Just park at the corner." "Yeah, he's almost done." I could hear her smile in her voice. That soft, smug tone you only use when you're excited, when you're playing with fire. And that's when it hit me. She thought I was in the bathroom. She thought I was right there. She was setting this up while pretending she loved me, while pretending I was enough. I didn't make a sound. No dramatic gasp. No shattering glass. I just stood there, long enough to make sure I wasn't imagining it. And then I backed away, walked past the door I came in, and left. My hands were steady, which I remember thinking was strange. I didn't even grab my phone. Just my truck keys and the jacket I left on the banister. I drove 10 blocks before the first message hit my phone. "Riley, where are you?" Then, "Are you messing with me?" Then, "This isn't funny." Then, "Jason?" I didn't respond. Not even when she called. Not when she texted that she needed to explain. Not when she said she was freaking out. The last one came through while I was sitting in a lawyer's office, quietly waiting for an appointment to talk about divorce paperwork. That's when I texted her. "Me, you should probably put a towel on. You've got mail coming." I hit send. Then I turned off my phone. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my dad. I didn't even tell my shift captain, who noticed I looked pale the next day and asked if I was sick. What was I supposed to say? That my wife was arranging secret hookups while I was supposedly in the shower? That she was doing it so casually, so effortlessly, that she probably hadn't even felt nervous about it? The scariest part wasn't the betrayal. It was how routine it sounded. How natural. That was the moment I knew this wasn't her first time. Not by a long shot. And the second I accepted that, something inside me switched off. I wasn't going to fight for this marriage. I wasn't going to confront her or ask why. There was nothing left to protect. But what I didn't expect was who showed up at my door 2 days later. Not Riley. Her younger sister. Natalie. With a bag in one hand and a look on her face like she knew everything. When I opened the door and saw Natalie standing there, suitcase at her side, I almost thought I was hallucinating. She was wearing a hoodie and jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked pissed. Not upset. Not weepy. Pissed. She didn't even wait for me to invite her in. "Can I crash here for a bit?" she asked, brushing past me like she'd lived there before. I'm not staying with her. Not after that. I shut the door slowly behind her. "So you know," Natalie snorted. "I knew before you did." That was the first slap to the face. The second? She wasn't being metaphorical. She sat at the kitchen island like she'd done dozens of times before at holidays or barbecues. But this time she was different. More raw. More honest. She rubbed her face with both hands and then looked up at me. "You want the real story?" she said. "Because I'm done protecting her." I nodded. And then she told me everything. Riley had started seeing the guy months ago. Not by accident. Not because they just clicked. Not because she was lonely or neglected or whatever excuse cheaters love to pull out. She had gone looking for him. His name was Drew, and Natalie had dated him last year. She broke things off because he had this smug, manipulative streak. Always made her feel like she was lucky to have him, even when he did nothing for her. Natalie said he had a predator's charm. A way of sniffing out people who wanted attention and feeding them exactly what they wanted to hear. Riley had met him at a party while he was still with Natalie. And apparently, the moment she realized he was her sister's boyfriend, she set her sights on him. Not because she wanted him, Natalie said, but because she wanted to win. To prove she could take anything Natalie had. It wasn't about love. It was about control. I caught them texting 2 months after we broke up, Natalie said, her voice shaking a little now. I told her to cut it out. Told her he was toxic. She said I was being dramatic and jealous. Said I was insecure. She took a sip from the glass of water I set down for her. Then she looked straight at me. I tried to warn you before you married her. You remember? I did. At our engagement dinner, Natalie had pulled me aside. She was tense and awkward, said something like, just be careful with Riley. She doesn't always tell the truth. At the time, I thought it was typical sister stuff. Sibling rivalry. Now I realized she'd been trying to save me from this exact hell. She's been doing this her whole life, Natalie added. Taking what I have, breaking it so no one can have it. I just never thought she'd marry someone just to do it. I had no idea how to respond. My world was already cracked open. But this was something else. This was intentional. Riley hadn't just cheated. She'd used my mother's death, the grief support group, as a cover for her affair. And now I found out she'd used our marriage to win a sick game against her own sister. I asked Natalie how she could still talk to her after all that. She laughed. I don't. Haven't for a month. She only called me last night, crying about how you overreacted and ruined everything. Said you just left and refused to talk. Didn't even mention the cheating part. That was Riley, all right. She could reframe betrayal into abandonment in seconds. Twist the narrative until she looked like the wounded party. But Natalie wasn't finished. She stood up and walked to the fridge, opened it, grabbed a soda like she owned the place. And just as casually, she said, by the way, she's coming here. She thinks she can talk you down. Probably forgot I still have a key. I blinked. You gave her a key to my house? She shook her head. No, I used to have one. Before I threw it in the sewer 2 days ago. You're welcome. That night, I slept with my phone on airplane mode. I didn't want calls. I didn't want texts. I didn't want explanations. But the next morning, my front door camera showed Riley standing outside, in full makeup and heels, with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She stood there for 20 minutes. Then she rang the bell. And just before I could open it, Natalie beat me to it. And what she said was nothing short of war. The doorbell rang. Riley stood on the front porch like she was starring in a scene she'd written herself. Hair curled, blouse tucked into high-waisted jeans, one hand resting casually on her hip like this was just some everyday couple's misunderstanding. Before I could even take a step, Natalie walked past me and threw the door open. Riley blinked in surprise. Seriously? She said, not even hiding the disdain in her voice. You're staying here? Natalie didn't flinch. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorway like she had all the time in the world. Nice outfit, Natalie said coolly. Did you dress up for the apology tour, or are you sleeping with the Uber driver too? Riley's jaw tightened. I'm not here to talk to you. Too bad, Natalie replied. I'm here to talk to you. I stayed in the hallway, half hidden, watching 2 women with the same blood but completely different souls go toe-to-toe. You used him, Natalie said, motioning toward me without even turning around. You used Mom's funeral as a launchpad. You made him think you were broken so he'd fix you. And when he started to actually matter to you, you panicked. Because love doesn't let you control people. Riley scoffed. Don't psychoanalyze me, Nat. I'm not. I'm telling you what everyone else is too afraid to say, Natalie snapped. You don't love him. You just hate being second. You've hated it your whole life. Riley took a shaky breath and tried to step forward, but Natalie blocked the doorway with one arm. You took Drew from me because I told you no for once. You married Jason because Mom said I'd never find someone stable. You don't want relationships, you want trophies. That one landed. Riley's expression cracked, just for a second, before she pasted on another layer of sarcasm. You always were dramatic, she said. He's a grown man. If he feels used, that's on him. Natalie didn't even blink. Tell him what you said about the bathroom, she said. That stopped Riley cold. Her eyes darted toward the hallway. You think he didn't hear you? Natalie said, voice rising now. You literally said, he's in the shower, you have 5 minutes. And when he walked out the front door without a word, you were more shocked that you got caught than anything else. You're not sorry. You're just embarrassed. Riley's face twisted into something bitter. That's rich, coming from someone who still crashes on other people's couches and can't hold a job for more than 6 months. Natalie shrugged. Maybe, but I never cheated. I never made love feel like a transaction. And I didn't build my whole personality around being the prettier one. Riley took a step back. Screw you. Natalie smiled. You already did. With my ex. The silence after that was suffocating. I finally stepped forward. Riley looked at me like she just remembered I existed. Like the whole confrontation had been for me, but also not really about me at all. She tried a softer tone. Jason, can we talk? Just us. I didn't respond. I just watched her, how quickly she could switch gears. From smug, to bitter, to soft and wounded. All within a minute. Natalie answered for me. No, you don't get that anymore, she said. You had your chance. And he gave you more grace than you ever earned. I held the door open. Riley looked at both of us, then back at the house. You think you're going to what? Date him now? That's so pathetic. I'm not dating anyone, Natalie said. But if I were, at least I'd know how to tell the truth. That stung. Riley's eyes flashed, but she didn't speak again. She turned and walked back down the steps without another word. No grand exit. No dramatic tears. Just silence. And something like rage simmering behind her perfect posture. Natalie closed the door slowly. And for the first time in 2 days, I exhaled. Not because I was fine. Not because it didn't hurt. But because the truth was finally in the open. No more lies. No more guessing. Just the raw, ugly pieces. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, a chance to rebuild something honest. Riley didn't show up again after that confrontation. No more ringing doorbells, no calls, no texts. But she didn't disappear. She changed tactics. 2 days later, I got a message from a guy named Marcus, an old mutual friend from our wedding party. Marcus, hey man. Just wanted to say I'm sorry you're going through this. Riley's been saying a lot. If you want to talk, I'm here. I hadn't spoken to Marcus in months. Maybe longer. My stomach dropped. I texted back. Me? What exactly has she been saying? He replied with a screenshot. It was a post in a private Facebook group. A mix of her old college friends, work friends, and some of mine. People who only ever saw the polished version of our life. Her message read, Jason just walked out. No warning. No conversation. 1 minute we were making plans for dinner, the next he was gone. I'm trying to stay strong, but abandonment hits different when you never saw it coming. And underneath it, dozens of comments. You deserve better. Men can be so emotionally unavailable. He was always too serious for you. Let us know if you need anything. She was building a sympathy campaign, laying the groundwork, painting herself as the wife who got blindsided. And it was working. I could feel the anger rise in my throat. Not because she was lying. That didn't surprise me anymore. But because she knew I'd keep my mouth shut. She was counting on me staying quiet. That night, Natalie found me pacing in the backyard. She didn't say anything for a while. Just stood next to me, sipping tea, watching the stars come out. Eventually, I told her about the post. Showed her the screenshots. She scrolled through them and let out a slow breath. She's doing what she always does, Natalie said. Rewrite the story before the truth catches up. Then she looked at me. You want to blow it up? I nodded. So we did. Natalie still had a few of Riley's iCloud backups on her old laptop, from the days they'd shared an Apple family account. Riley had never been great with tech. She thought deleting messages from her phone meant they were gone forever. They weren't. Natalie pulled up everything. Call logs, texts, photos. And there it was. The message. He's in the shower. You have 5 minutes. The timestamp. 2:16 p.m. Exactly when I walked in the door. The photo from earlier that week. Riley and Drew, half-dressed in a hotel mirror selfie. Date stamped. Smiling. I stared at that image for a long time. Not because I needed more proof, but because of how casual it was. Like it meant nothing. That's what really gutted me. She hadn't even tried to hide it with shame. Just comfort. Ease. Routine. I typed out one message. Attached the screenshots. Sent it to the same group chat where she'd posted her sob story. No caption. No explanation. Just, this is what really happened. Then I shut off the app. And waited. An hour later, Marcus texted again. Marcus, damn man. She's melting down. Comments are getting deleted. She blocked 3 people already. Me. She'll be fine. She said she had 5 minutes. The fallout came fast. The same people who commented hearts and stay strong emojis were suddenly going quiet. Others messaged me privately, some apologizing, some stunned, one even admitting, I always had a weird feeling about her. Riley, of course, didn't reach out. But I got a call the next morning from her mother. She wanted to talk. I let it go to voicemail. She left a clipped message, asking me to handle this privately and think about Riley's reputation. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Because here's the thing. Riley was the one who aired it publicly. I just gave the truth some sunlight. Later that day, I got an email from my lawyer. The divorce filing had been processed. Riley hadn't contested it. No alimony. No shared property. She just signed. Quickly. I guess she knew she didn't have much of a leg to stand on anymore. I poured a glass of bourbon that night. Sat on the porch. Didn't toast to anything. Just let the air settle. Natalie joined me an hour later. Feel better? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I feel finished. She nodded. That's a start. But neither of us knew. We weren't done with Riley yet. The fallout from the group chat leak was fast, but not final. I thought that was the end of it. She signed the divorce papers, deleted her sob story post, ghosted every mutual friend who didn't buy her version. Her phone had been silent. I figured she was doing what she always did, retreat, regroup, and reinvent herself as the victim somewhere else. But I was wrong. Because when she couldn't reach me, she set her sights on the next closest target. Natalie. It started with a text. Natalie, you won't believe this. Check your email. Attached was a forwarded message from Riley to Natalie's boss. A formal complaint. Fabricated, but detailed. Alleging that Natalie was mentally unstable, had a history of workplace aggression, and used her sister's marriage breakdown as justification for erratic behavior and unprofessionalism. It was laced with vague legal phrases and empty threats like, "We may be forced to pursue formal action." Riley CC'd HR. Natalie worked freelance marketing gigs, usually short-term contracts. She was already on thin ice at this job. The email didn't even need to be believable, just disruptive, just enough to plant doubt. I was livid, not just because it was cruel, but because it was strategic. Riley couldn't hurt me legally, financially, or emotionally anymore. So she went after the one person in my life who had dared to call her bluff in public. Natalie took a deep breath and typed out a response. Simple, professional, and loaded with facts Riley hadn't expected anyone to keep, including Drew's restraining order from 6 months prior. Yeah, that guy, the affair partner. Natalie had tried to keep that buried, embarrassed by it. Turns out, Drew got obsessive after she dumped him, showed up at her old apartment, sent weird emails to her clients. One of those emails included Riley's name. Riley was already involved long before I ever knew. Natalie had filed a report, and apparently, Riley had lied in a witness statement back then to try to protect Drew, swearing Natalie had overreacted. She attached that report to her email reply to HR. Didn't even mention Riley by name. Just facts, dates, documentation. And that's when I realized something. Natalie was done playing defense. She didn't ask me to get involved. Didn't ask me to step in or talk to Riley. She didn't even mention it to her parents, who were still in their usual posture of, "We don't take sides." She just handled it. And for the first time in weeks, I saw Riley lose control. She sent a flurry of texts that same night. To me, to Natalie, even to my friends. "So you're both just teaming up now? You don't see how messed up this is? You're sheltering her like some wounded puppy. This isn't what Mom would have wanted." Ah, yes. There it was. The guilt grenade. But it didn't work. Because I knew now, beyond a shadow of doubt, that Riley's world didn't collapse because of the affair. It collapsed because the people she manipulated finally started comparing notes. Natalie blocked her. Quietly. I didn't. I left her on read. Let her words sit in her outbox. Let her see the little seen, check mark, and know she didn't even get a reaction. And just when things started to settle, she pulled one final stunt. I got a certified letter at the house 2 days later. An official-looking envelope with a notice of claim stamped across the top. Riley was threatening to take me to small claims court. She wanted $2,450 for lost personal items and emotional damages because I withheld her belongings during the separation process. You want to know what she was referring to? A $300 designer robe she'd left hanging in the bathroom, a blender, 3 framed photos, and, her words, not mine, the loss of reputation and emotional distress caused by false narratives circulated to mutual social contacts. She actually listed the group chat screenshots as evidence of defamation. I laughed. Out loud. My lawyer laughed, too. It never made it to court. She dropped it within a week. But in that moment, I saw Riley fully for what she was. Not dangerous. Not tragic. Just pathetic. Desperate to win something. Even if it was just $2,450 and a cheap attempt at rewriting the ending. But this wasn't her story anymore. She'd already handed that away the second she whispered those 8 words into the phone. "He's in the shower. You have 5 minutes." What she didn't know is that I was done giving anyone minutes they didn't deserve. After Riley's fake legal stunt fizzled out, everything got quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. No new texts. No social media drama. No unexpected knocks at the door. It was like the eye of a storm passed over our lives and finally kept moving. Natalie stayed another week. She never said how long she planned to stay. She didn't need to. We fell into a strange, unspoken rhythm. I worked my shifts at the station, came home to a warm light in the kitchen, sometimes leftovers with a sticky note that said something like, "Eat this. You look like roadkill." It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it was real. And that felt like more than I'd had in years. One night, she found me in the garage, just standing there, staring at the empty shelf where Riley used to keep her baking stuff. She came in barefoot, leaned against the dryer, and said, "You know what I think hurts the most?" I didn't answer. I just waited. Natalie shrugged. "She never actually wanted you." "Not really. She just wanted someone who wanted her. That hit like a slow punch to the gut. Because it was true. Riley never built anything. She borrowed. She adapted. She absorbed. Whoever she dated, she turned herself into whatever they were missing, until she couldn't keep the mask on anymore. And then she left them worse off. I used to think she loved me. Now I know she just needed a place to stand that made her feel taller. A few days later, Natalie packed up her things. Not because I asked, and not because anything bad had happened. She just came down the stairs with her bag slung over one shoulder and said, "I think it's time I stopped being your guest and started being my own person again." She smiled when she said it. Not sad, just honest. "You've got your life back," she added. "Don't let her keep renting space in your head." I walked her to the car. We didn't hug. That wasn't really our thing. But right before she got in, she turned and said something I'll never forget. She only gave people 5 minutes. But you? You gave her years. Now give yourself that same kind of time. And then she drove off. I stood in the driveway until the taillights disappeared. A few months have passed now. Riley's moved to a new city. Last I heard, she's trying to start a lifestyle blog. That tracks. I haven't spoken to her since the day she served me a court notice over a blender and a bathrobe. Most of our friends know the truth now. The ones who didn't? They're not really my friends. And honestly, that's fine. I've learned how much weight I used to put on being liked, being understood. Now I don't really care who gets it. I know what happened. Natalie knows. That's enough. I replaced the photos on the living room wall, swapped out the last remnants of Riley's curated life, painted the bedroom, gave her old wine rack to the neighbor who never liked her anyway. And I bought a dog. A rescue mutt named Tucker who's missing part of one ear and acts like every day is the best day of his life. He sleeps on Riley's side of the bed. Good boy. If you've read this far, maybe you're wondering what the moral is. Maybe you're hoping I'll say Natalie and I fell in love, or Riley apologized, or I got some perfect Hollywood ending. I didn't. What I got was better. I got my time back. I got silence that wasn't tense. Rooms that didn't feel staged. Meals that didn't have to be just right to avoid a mood swing. I got to live in my own house without wondering if someone else's voice was about to whisper through the hallway when I wasn't supposed to be listening. And for anyone out there who's been through something like this, who heard the lie before they were meant to, just know, you don't have to fight to be chosen. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you'll ever say. I didn't slam the door. I didn't break anything. I didn't need revenge. I just left. And she was still dripping wet when the truth caught up. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.